Welcome to the local campaign, and thank you for joining us on Rogers TV. Our debate today is in the riding of Ottawa South, and in just a moment I'm going to introduce the candidates who are here for the debate. But first, I'll quickly walk through the rules of how things are going to work. Each candidate will have 1 minute to provide an opening statement. The order for those opening statements was drawn at random just before we began our telecast. And then we'll proceed into a series of debates and discussions about the important issues in this election campaign, both local and province-wide issues. In every case, I will start the debate by directing a question to one of the candidates. He or she will have 45 seconds to talk about that issue and answer the question. And then we'll open it up to several minutes of debate from amongst all the candidates. Once we have completed that debate, we'll go back to the candidate to whom the question was originally directed, and that candidate will have 30 seconds to wrap up on that topic. We'll move through a series of discussions and debates on all the major topics that way, and then we'll wrap up with closing statements. We'll do those in the reverse order of the opening statements. So let's meet the candidates who are running in Ottawa South in the June 7th Ontario election, beginning with the Green Party candidate, Les Schramm. Larry Wassailing is the Communist Party candidate. Robert Daigneault is representing the Libertarian Party. The Liberal Party candidate is John Fraser. Karen Howard is running for the Progressive Conservative Party. And the NDP candidate is Eleanor Fast. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us here at Rogers TV for this debate. Let's get to the opening statements, and we will begin with Les Schramm of the Green Party. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Hi, I'm Les Schramm. I have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. It's been predicted that they will have up to 20 jobs and 6 career changes. It's predicted that they will have less food security due to the effects of global warming and man-made pollutants. I'm running in this election because I want to build a better future for my children and my grandchildren. A future with better jobs, a future with food and housing security, a future with a clean environment. The goals of the Green Party are to build a resilient, sustainable economy and mitigate the effects of global warming and pollution. The Green Party will grow jobs, create jobs, grow the economy, improve health care, and care for the most vulnerable in our society. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Larry Wassailing, who is the Communist Party candidate. Go ahead, you have 1 minute as well.
This debate takes place on unceded and unsurrendered Algonquin land, and the Communist Party recognizes Canada's disgraceful colonial past and the continuing colonial present. You have every right to be angry at the capitalist system and the capitalist political parties that put corporate greed ahead of the needs of you and your family. The rich are getting richer, and you and I struggle to make ends meet. The corrupt McGuinty-Wynne Liberals have privatized our public assets so that their friends can maximize profits. The millionaire Doug Ford talks about efficiencies, but what he's really calling for are even more drastic cuts to the services we so desperately need. We must redefine what is possible in this election. We must demand a People's Alternative program that puts people's needs ahead of corporate greed. Vote for Canada's Party of Socialism, Communist Party of Canada, on June 7th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is the Libertarian Party candidate, Robert Daigneault. Go ahead.
Yes, it's about time in this province that your tax money that you pay works for you, not what the government decides. Our platform is very basically simple. I'll give you 2 examples of our platform. When you pay your taxes for medical and for your children going to school, you're going to be the one that's going to decide what you want to do with that money. It's going to be collected in taxes, but you will decide. If you want to go full OHIP, you can decide that. If you want to go full private, you can decide that. The same thing for the money allocated to each kid for education. If you want to use it to send your kid to public school, it's going to be your choice. Catholic school is going to be your choice. Private school, it's going to be your choice. Taxes that you pay, it should be your choice. Also, we plan to eliminate the Green Energy Act to lower the electricity bill by 50% and get rid of time of use of day for electricity.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Liberal Party candidate, John Fraser. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you to my fellow candidates. I'm John Fraser, Liberal candidate for Ottawa South. And for the past 5 years, I've had the opportunity to represent Ottawa South as its MPP. And for the last 20 years, I've worked alongside leaders in our community to build up the places and services that our families depend on. I am proud of the work that we've done together to bring positive change to our community, building up our hospitals, stronger schools, better public transit, and support for our seniors. I care very deeply about the community I've called home my entire life, and I want to continue to work to build up those services that our families depend on for all those who live, work, and raise their families in Ottawa South. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Karen Howard, who is the Progressive Conservative Party candidate. Go ahead, you have 1 minute as well.
Thank you, Mark, and hello, candidates. It's a great day today. We finally get to debate. So my name's Karen Howard, and I am the candidate for the Progressive Conservative Party in Ottawa South. I would like to ask you to vote for me for 3 reasons. The first is that I'm prepared to do the job. I have been a city councillor twice, and I've been on several boards and committees, including the Budget Committee, Planning Committee, Hospital Board, Riverside Hospital, the Library Board, FCA, and there's a list, as well as a community association. I've raised my 3 children here in Ottawa South, and I believe I know the issues. I also have a law degree and a science degree, and my Master's of Law, which isn't quite finished, is on political accountability, which is my passion. So I want to bring fairness and open, accountable government to you. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Finally, the NDP candidate, Eleanor Fast. Go ahead, you have 1 minute as well.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Eleanor Fast. I've lived in Ottawa South for 15 years with my family. I'm an active volunteer with my children's schools, daycare, the community association, hockey, gymnastics, track. I love Ottawa South, and I would be honoured to serve as the next MPP. In my professional life, I'm Executive Director of a National Health Sciences charity, and formerly was the head of a national environmental charity. I am committed to making life better, and that is why I am so proud to be on Andrea Horvath's team. We will ensure everyone has access to dental care and pharmacare. We will end hallway medicine and improve long-term care. We will create more jobs for young people. In our fully costed plan, we will ask the most wealthy to pay just a little bit more to make life better for everyone. Together, we will bring change for the better to Ottawa South.
All right, thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for your opening statements. We're going to move into the first debate now. Just before we do that, I will mention there is one other candidate who is running in Ottawa South who is not with us for the debate today, and that is the none of the above party candidate, Dean Gorman. So our first question is on the subject of energy policy. I'm going to direct it to the Green Party candidate, Les Schramm, and the question is, should the pay of Hydro One executives and board members be reduced?
Well, the simple answer is, of course, it should be reduced. The more complicating problem is that we have no authority as a government to do that. That's a private corporation. They can set their own. Agenda on payroll. So the question is what energy in general. I mean, the Liberal government sold off a large chunk of Hydro One, and we are now in a position where that private corporation can do as it chooses. This has cost us money. It will continue to cost us money. And frankly, I see no affordable way to reverse the decision. I don't see that we can buy back all of Hydro One in any reasonable fashion. We may or may not be able to buy back a portion of it. But if we could get, at some point, it would be good to get retain control and control those salaries.
All right, it's open to everyone now.
Just to first of all, to mention, we still owe 40% of Hydro One. It should never have been put private in the first place. But just to show you an image, right now the CEO of Hydro One is making $6 million a year. The average salary of a CEO in all of the other electrical company in all the provinces is about $400,000 a year. So you can see the difference between $6 million and $400,000. Even the Hydro-Quebec, the person only makes about $520. I think he's the second highest paid in the country. So $6 million is a little high, I would say.
I just want to say this is the time to hold John Fraser to account. All right, he's been in office for a long time, and he's been in the back rooms for a long time. So today's the day that we all have the chance to hold you to account, John. Why did you sell off Hydro One? Was it just to pay off some of the debt so that you can look like you're bringing in a balanced budget, which you never actually brought in? Why would you sell off a huge public utility and leave us in a position where we cannot see the finances now because it's no longer a public utility? It's private. We can no longer audit the books. Why would you do that?
So, Karen, I completely agree.
Put your hand down.
Karen, I completely agree that the compensation at Hydro One is wrong, and it needs to be fixed.
That's your problem. John,
I can't agree.
it's on
I can't
your
agree
watch.
with something that I don't believe in.
No, but it's-
let's
but
not-
you
let's
went
not
along with it,
confuse-
John.
Let's not confuse the privatization of Hydro One with the compensation issue that we have at Hydro One.
It's a pattern
Now,
of bad decisions, John.
What the policy decision for Hydro One was to bring private sector rigor, and I know I was in business for 22 years, to Hydro One, and that's what's happening. And I want to go back to compensation. It's wrong. It needs to be fixed.
But it's a
and I'm
pattern.
committed to going
It's
to
a
Queen's
pattern,
work
John. It's a pattern of
fix that.
paying top dogs too much.
The compensation before it became private was about $4 million before it became private. So $4 million compared to 400,000. Give me a break.
The truth is that only the NDP, of the three major parties, only the NDP has a plan to reduce hydro rates by 30%. We are committed to bring Hydro One back into public hands. Public services like hydro should be in public hands for the public good. The Liberals have let us down in privatising Hydro One, and the Conservatives have no plan to change it.
How much is it
They
going to
will
cost?
We
How much is it gonna
absolutely
cost?
do have a plan.
Conservatives will
How much is it
keep
gonna
Hydro
cost?
One in public
You've
hands.
got no money to do what you plan to
How
do.
much is it going
Wash
to
your
cost to buy it back? How much? You think they're going to let these shares go for free? It's going to be more than what we sold them for. So,
Ontario must recuperate the public utility, and Hydro One must be made public again. This was a horrible mistake by the Liberal Party, and the Conservatives fully backed the privatization. They back it all the way. So this pretend debate that's going on here is irrelevant. What we must do is we must make hydro public. It must be accountable to the population, publicly owned and democratically controlled. Only then will we be able to bring down those salaries to a reasonable level. And right now, it is a disgrace that we are paying such hydro bills and these people are making millions of dollars.
The Liberal government has a pattern of paying CEOs and top dogs way too much. I'm not sure if there's a nickel in anybody's pocket that Kathleen Wynne doesn't want to spend for us.
So-
How dare she do that? John.
Let me be clear.
The issue is not just this
Well, but you
compensation,
get
the
to-
issue is also hydro costing. And there are ways to reduce hydro cost without having, even though we don't have the power to lower the raises. We can.
I'm going to intervene and let John Fraser speak. You get the
Okay.
last 30 seconds on
Okay.
this no matter
You get
what.
the last
so-
word, Les.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Go ahead.
Simply put again, what's happening at Hydro Run with compensation is wrong and it needs to be fixed. But let's remember too that the Fair Hydro Plan, which is reducing rates for people by an average of 25% and for low income people between 40 and 50% was important to do.
By
Because
borrowing
that's
$24 billion.
what families need to do now.
You know what? And my unborn grandchildren
so
will
when-
be paying
by
off that
borrowing
debt
$24
in
billion
30
is going to
years.
when
cost
we
us
took
interest
over,
like you wouldn't believe.
not one government, NDP, Liberal, Conservative, had invested in the infrastructure we need to deliver electricity
It's
to our homes and our
overspending.
businesses.
It's
And
overspending,
it's important
not investment.
that work got done. And what we've done essentially is extend that mortgage out.
It's going to
for
cost
all
between
those things
36
that
and
we had
$91
to
billion
invest in the
in
system
interest
Okay.
payments.
to make sure people could get power. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll just remind you to you do need to take turns or people won't hear what any of you are saying. So wait until someone else finishes, please. Les Schramm, you get the final 30 seconds on this.
The energy portfolio has been badly managed from day one. It goes back to the gas plant that got closed for no good reason. And now it goes into the Hydro One purchase. We are just in a mess with hydro. We need to bring some accountability to the issue. We need to find a way to get the executive compensation under control. And we need to find a way to lower costs. I'll address that at a different point in the debate, but we do have a method of doing that.
All right. Thank you. The next question is for Larry Wassailing, who is the Communist Party candidate. Ontario's healthcare system is very expensive compared to other jurisdictions and in some cases doesn't deliver results that are as good as other countries. What innovations would you introduce to make our healthcare system more effective and more efficient?
Well, thank you for the question. It's an important question for me because I was a registered nurse for 40 years, mainly working at the Children's Hospital right here in Ottawa South. So healthcare is critical. It's one of the #1 priorities of any provincial government. And one of the things that we must do is ensure that the Canada Health Act is completely covered by the province and with the support of the federal government. The other thing is we have to spend effectively on prevention, putting a lot of money into preventive care, not just hospital care. So this is a very big topic. It's a complex topic, but it really begins with early treatment, early care, and prevention.
Okay, it's open to everyone.
I'd like to bring a point about the system saying mismanaged. I just read an article today in the Ottawa Sun saying that cystic fibrosis kids would like a drug to be approved. It's cost $250,000 a year, but they won't be approved by the Liberals. The problem is these kids have to go to the hospital about 5, 6, 7 times a year with a cost of over $1 million a year to be kept in a hospital. So what's more cost effective? Approving that drug at $250,000 or paying over $1 million to keep these kids in a hospital for a week, 2 weeks at a time, 3 or 4 times a year?
Andrea Horvath is the only leader with a plan to end hallway medicine, to introduce universal pharmacare and dental care, and to build the best home care in the country, as well as fixing the crisis in seniors' care. Ottawa South has amazing hospitals, but the Liberals have let us down. They have frozen hospital budgets. This means that people in Ottawa South are being treated in hallways, and ill children are being transferred out of CHEO to hospitals hundreds of miles away. And the Conservatives, Doug Ford, will cut. The last Conservative government fired 6,000 nurses and closed 28 hospitals, over 7,000 hospital beds. That will affect us here in Ottawa South.
Wait a second. The record we're checking right now is what the Liberals have done, and they fired 1,600 nurses in 2015, cut medical residency positions. And John Fraser, you brought in a bill that didn't have consultation with the doctors. They're furious. You've got every single group in the frontline healthcare providers angry. And you've got long wait times. You've got the fewest number of PSWs per person in Ottawa South, and you've got the longest median wait time of on average in the province. And this is all on your record.
Karen, can I respond? Karen, I've been working in this community in 20 years, trying to build up the healthcare that we have. So I'm going to say I remember when Mike Harris fired 5,000 nurses. Okay, I remember when they tried to close the CHEO cardiac unit.
Karen, if you're talking about...
I did not interrupt. Can I finish?
Years ago, John.
Yep.
So, but let me finish, please, if I can have a moment to finish. When they closed the Grace, the Riverside, tried to close them all 4. Yeah. And I remember that. I remember what that did to our community. I remember what we had to do to build that up. And what's happened in our community is at the Ottawa Hospital, at the general campus, we have a new critical care wing, a new cancer center. We're building one door for care at CHEO. We built Project Stitch. We built the Gary Cardiff wing and put a new emergency room in CHEO.
And you haven't
invested in those services that are important to people.
You are treating
and I'm going to continue to fight for those investments for Ottawa South. Yeah. In our community of Ottawa.
You are treating patients in hallways. There's some that are put in broom closets. There's some that are they're closing bathrooms to put beds in there because they can't afford to open hospital rooms. There's not enough doctors. There's not enough. The reason is right now 52% of our healthcare budget is going to bureaucrats. Bureaucrats. You know, they bring zero care to zero patient. Cut the bureaucrats. And that's what the Libertarian Party is going to do. We're going to cut the bureaucrats. And for everyone that is cut, we're going to hire new doctors, new nurses, new frontline workers. That's what we need to reduce time. There's not enough doctors, not enough nurses, not enough frontline workers in the hospitals.
This election,
52% of our budget.
We don't have to settle for the Liberals' cuts or the Conservatives' cuts. People of Ottawa South have a choice. You don't have to choose between bad or worse. you can vote for Change for the Better and the NDP. We have a plan on healthcare to stop hallway medicine. We will increase hospital funding by 5% and create 2,000 new hospital beds.
Tory
We
times,
will. We
Tory
will.
times are tough times. I was president of the Nurses Union at the Children's Hospital when Mike Harris was premier, and he closed entire floors. And Doug Ford is Mike Harris on steroids. So make no mistake about this.
the Liberals have
The
cut
Liberals,
$4 billion.
the Liberals and
$4
the
billion.
Tories work hand in glove.
Yeah, but the Liberals, whom we are now holding to account, have cut $4 billion.
I don't believe you've had a chance to
From
talk about
hospital
it.
Let's get some reality into this. Healthcare is an issue wherever you go in the world. It's expensive, it's inefficient everywhere. So yes, we need some reforms in
That's
Ontario.
not true,
It's
Les.
true.
So
It's true. America's a disaster. England is really looking hard at preventative measures. They're looking at sugar taxes. They're looking at taxes on restaurant food because it's a problem for everyone. So we have to have solutions. We have proposals that will alleviate the situation in the short term. By bringing in more doctors, more nurses,
All right.
yes, you alleviate
We'll have to
alleviate
stop
the
there.
problem.
Thank you. We're going to go back to Larry Wassailing. I asked you the question, so you have the final 30 seconds. Go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you very much. Healthcare is a very complex issue, a very complex problem, and there are no easy solutions. But what is fundamental is that we restore health and hospital funding to the national average. We reopen many of the closed hospitals and units that have already been shut down, and we bring in full and universal dental care, vision care, pharmacare, mental health, and long-term care. There is a different alternative, a people's alternative. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Let's move on to the next topic. I'm going to direct this question to Robert Daigneault, the Libertarian candidate. And this is a question that comes from the community about the opioid crisis. What steps do you think are necessary to reduce the rising number of overdoses? And would you support a mobile supervised injection site for Ottawa?
No, I wouldn't support a mobile. What we need to do is we need to put money in places where they're going to take people off opioids, not, go and aid and abide them taking these poisons, okay? Right now, there's no money going into places where the people can get cured and can get off those opioid, and they should. They should put the money there, but they're putting it into safe injection sites. And safe injection sites, if I remember right, is only for heroin. It doesn't include all the other opioids. So I don't know why they're putting all these safe injection sites. They're not safe. They're aiding and abetting and people putting poisons into their body.
Okay, it's open to everyone on this topic. Go ahead.
The NDP will be creating a new Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions. We will be building 30,000 new supportive housing units over 10 years and hiring 2,600 mental health workers. These are all important to fighting the opioid emergency. To get to your original question, Mark, yes, we do support safe injection sites. The opioid overdose emergency has touched every single community in Ontario, including Ottawa South. Deaths from drugs like fentanyl have cast a shadow on thousands of families. We have to act on this. And there is no question that the crisis has exacted an especially heavy toll on marginalised and vulnerable communities. For people living in poverty, who don't have stable housing, or who are coping with systemic racism. We need to help these people, and the NDP is the only party with a plan to do that. Our new Ministry of Mental Health and
We also have a plan.
Green Party was the first.
Would you like to go ahead?
Go ahead, John.
Okay. No, if you would like to, that's I was.
Go ahead.
So I fully support a mobile supervised injection site. And it's not because of what I think or what any of us think here. It's because our nurses, our addictions counselors are telling us we need to do it. Dr. Jeffrey Turnbull, former chief of staff to the Ottawa Hospital, second or third biggest hospital in Canada, former head of the CMA, president of the CMA, he says, we need to do this. People's sons and daughters are dying out there. That's why we need to do it.
But
That's
why
the
is it taking you
opportunity
so
to
long,
reduce harm.
John?
We need beds
Like it's
for
taking you so
rehabilitation.
long, man.
We need beds to cure them, not to make it worse.
This is not an either-or question.
No.
This is a this and that question. There's no question that we need these safe injection sites. We need to get these people into a place where we can look after them. So it's not a this or that. It's this and that. We
I agree with
also
you.
need
Yep.
fully funded mental health care, fully funded addiction care. This is not a simple problem. This is a complex problem. And we cannot just jump to simplified answers which actually produce more harm than good.
So the
Because
Progressive
there is
Conservatives-
no money going into addiction care. That's the
No,
problem.
the problem is you cannot, what you're proposing is that we force people into addiction care. It doesn't work. It's never
I
worked.
didn't
It
say
never will.
force. I didn't say
If people,
force. It says be
when they go
available
to the
to
safe
someone.
injection site, they have an access route to mental health
There's
care.
nothing, there's
They-
nothing
they have
forced
an
there.
access. They
There's
have
nothing
it-
forced there. Be
Okay.
available for the
Okay.
people.
So the
to use
When
it.
they go to the injection
So there's a
site, they have
question on the
access to a
table
social
here,
worker.
and the first question is, do you support a mobile supervised injection
Absolutely.
site? I know
Absolutely.
that Doug Ford has said, I don't believe in them. I don't think it's a question of belief. So I don't know.
Thank
It's
you.
over to you.
Well, thank you. We're going to put 1.9 billion in 10 years into mental health and addiction because we know it's important. So we do have the commitment and we will deal with it. But what I can tell you is that individually in communities, kids are dying because you have not dealt with this problem. There is no strategy, and you've got illegal pop-up sites happening where people are breaking the law, and this business between the mayor and the chief of police, who's going to enforce what, is it illegal or not?
And they're not
That's
arresting anybody.
Do
the
you support
crisis that
supervised
has,
injection sites?
me personally,
Do you support,
I can tell
does
you
your party
that
support
answer.
them? Does your party support them?
I can tell you my answer on that one.
Okay.
And it is, we have to save the lives. But under you, they've had to break the law to
So
put them up.
that's a
Karen,
yes.
And you know what?
Your party's policy, Doug Ford's policy, will result in harm for our young people. My son
What are
is
you
6.
talking about?
My-
That is so wrong.
If you
We also care about people.
safe injection sites protect people's lives.
How?
That is the
An
bottom
example of how
line.
they
Yes, we
protect
We
lives.
need
Okay.
to well, then
Yes.
why are you not supporting safe
example of how
injection
they
sites
protect
if
lives.
you know that they protect people?
We are going to put $1.9 billion
Okay.
into that, including, I'm expecting that there will be safe injection sites, but we're not going to leave them there. We're going to
Doug
continue and do
Ford
the
has
other
said
things
Safe
that are
injection sites save
necessary.
lives just because it reduces the risk of infectious diseases from dirty needles.
And overdose.
Simple, the
And
simplest
overdose,
answer.
yeah.
And overdoses.
Yeah.
Very quick.
Every night at the trailer, at the Shepherds, overdoses are prevented. Every night on Clarence Street, overdoses are prevented. And people's lives are saved. And that's what the most important thing is.
All right, we'll stop there. We'll go back to Robert Daigneault. You had the question, so you get the final 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Well, the question is, how many percentage of that population uses these sites? Not very much. And like I said, it's not helping them. It's helping them to kill themselves. And to prevent overdoses, it's not because they go there one night and they're going to go try to do it another night somewhere else, and they're going to die. Like I said, we have 52% of our healthcare budget going to bureaucrats. That's $26 billion a year. We have plenty of money to be able to put back into the healthcare system and addiction centers to help them.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for John Fraser, the Liberal candidate. And as you mentioned, you've been the MPP for 5 years. And before that, you worked behind the scenes with the previous administration, the previous Liberal government under Premier Dalton McGuinty. After everything that's happened in the past 15 years, why is it not time for a change in government in Ontario?
Well, if you take a look in our community of Ottawa South, look at our healthcare. And I think I said this earlier. Take a look at the Ottawa Hospital. A new cancer center, a new critical care wing. At CHEO, Gary Cardiff wing and a new emergency room. We just opened a brand new University of Ottawa Heart Institute. We doubled the size of the Montfort. I've almost done that with the Queensway Carleton. We built a new Royal Ottawa Hospital. I think if you take a look at the progress that we've made in our schools, in our hospitals, of the things that are important to people's families, the things that I'm going to continue to fight for, that I've fought for 20 years, when I fought with thousands and thousands of other people to prevent the Conservative government from closing the CHEO cardiac unit, I'm going to continue to do that work.
You open all these
Okay,
brand,
open
you
everyone
open all
now.
these brand new
bricks and
hospitals,
mortar,
but
yeah.
you got no money to run them. All the bedrooms are closed. You don't have enough doctors. You don't have enough nurses to keep them open. So what's the use of putting money in all these new buildings, all these new rooms, if you can't keep them open? When the Ottawa Carlton went through a major renovation with new operating rooms a few years back, when it was time to open it in the summer, it had to be, all the operating rooms that were open had to be closed because they had no doctors, no nothing to keep it open. So what's the use of putting 25,000 new rooms if you can't run them? You have to have the money to run them. And that's why we got people in hallways, we got people in broom closets, we got people in bathrooms. That's the reason why.
Is it time for a change? Is it time for a change in terms of the government? It's a very important question because, first of all, the Tories, the Liberals, and even the NDP are providing this or that incentive for this or that capitalist to run things. So the question isn't, are you going to change jockey? The capitalist horse is racing. All of us are suffering from this, except for a handful of people of the 1%. So the question is not, should we change jockeys from Doug Ford or Kathleen Wynne or Ms. Horvath? The question is this horse going in the right direction? We are going down a devastating path. Capitalism is ruining families all across this riding. So it is time for a change, but not just a change of jockey. We need to change the horse, and we need to go in a different direction.
John has said the reason why he thinks he should be re-elected is because of his excellent record in healthcare. That's not your best foot forward, I would suggest. I think you have personally been involved in the dismantling of healthcare, the rationing of healthcare. We already have a two-tier system. We have cut medical residency positions, fired 1,600 nurses, cut physio for seniors, slashed physician services, added sublins and a ton of extra administration, and $4 billion from doctor services in 2015. Nobody's happy. There are seniors being abused in long-term care. There's a wait list for long-term care. You get the gold star for closing 600 schools. I mean, you picked healthcare, that's just one. But there are other portfolios where you failed consistently, and you've had enough time to prove yourself. And I'm sorry, John, I don't know how you sleep with yourself.
It is time for a change, but it's time for change for the better. Under Kathleen Wynne, services have been cut, families are feeling the squeeze, life keeps getting harder. After 15 years of the Liberals, hospitals are overcrowded, waits for healthcare are long, our children's schools are in disrepair. It just keeps getting worse. But Doug Ford is promising even deeper cuts, more privatisation. Our healthcare is more at risk.
It's a complete lie.
Doug Ford has promised to slash $6 billion across the board.
One thing you're missing about privatization is the people that are private will hire doctors, will hire nurses. That's the thing with public system. They're not hiring the doctors. They're not hiring the nurses.
You know what? We don't want to lie here. That's for sure. And what you just said was
Doug
a complete
Ford
falsehood.
has promised cuts. What are you going to cut, Karen? What is the Conservative government under Doug Ford going to cut?
No cuts to
You're
jobs.
going to
You know
cut
that.
services.
I'm sure
You are
we'll get
going
to
to
that
cut
later.
our
The issue is about
healthcare
the
and our
Liberals, whether they should be
education.
continuing.
Yes.
And really, I think that the Liberals have run the course. There's been mismanagement. I think there's a lack of critical thinking in the cabinet, so that they don't evaluate projects properly. They don't don't discuss things properly with the senior bureaucrats, because the senior bureaucrats are kind of in the pocket of consultants, and they're in the pockets of the lobbyists. And I think there's just a general lack of critical awareness and critical thinking, and we need a change where we get in there with some awareness, some thought, and get some things done right.
It's been 15 years, John. You're still blaming Mike Harris. 15 years. And suppose everything's supposed to be hunky-dory. So why do we have...
It's been 30 years in Ottawa South. It's really time for a change here.
We're talking about the Liberal mandate here, which has been 15 years, okay? Not before the economy was different, everything else was different. It's been 15 years, and they're still blaming somebody else.
What is exactly the same?
You were there for 15 years. You did nothing. You made everything worse.
What is exactly the same between Kathleen Wynne and Doug Ford is going to be this new Liberal austerity budget, where they're going to go after the working class, after the services that we need, and they're going to continue to let the 1% get ever richer. That's the one thing that will not change.
Okay, we'll stop there. John Fraser, you have the last 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. And I'm very proud of my record of fighting for things that are important to Ottawa South families, whether it's funding for Rogers House, a new civic hospital that will serve our community as well too. But what I want to remind people of is that Doug Ford and his future health minister, Mayor Lee Fullerton, has said they want one system. She's an advocate for one system. One for the 1%, the wealthy, so they can pay their way to the front of the line, and another for the rest of us. And I just don't think that that's what we want here in Ontario.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next question for Progressive Conservative candidate Karen Howard. Your party is opposed to carbon pricing. So what would you do to replace the revenue that you would lose from carbon pricing? And also, how would you achieve the emissions targets if you don't have a carbon tax? You have 45 seconds.
Well, first I would say that our party will restore public trust. So we're not going to make promises that we can't meet. So on the carbon tax and the cap and trade and the costing for these items and the promises that we're making, you can trust us over the next 2 weeks to come forward with the additional pieces of the platform. You may have noticed we're coming out with a piece of the platform every 2 days, every day. And so on the carbon tax and the cap and trade, we will not be continuing with those things because we feel at this time that people in Ontario are overtaxed. We're going to be reducing the costs of hydro, income tax, corporate tax, and gas tax. That was 45 seconds.
Why do people keep calling carbon pollution? It's carbon dioxide.
Exactly.
And it's only 4% of our atmosphere. Most of it is nitrogen and oxygen. And plants need carbon dioxide. What do you think is going to happen to the human race if all the plants on this planet die? We won't be able to survive as a human species because there won't be any grass, no food, no vegetables. The animals won't be able to feed themselves, so we won't have any animals to feed ourselves. Even in the greenhouses today, greenhouses, like right now it's 400 parts per million in the atmosphere. In greenhouses, they put injectors of CO2 to 850 parts per million to get better growth, better vegetables, bigger vegetables. So what is the carbon dioxide being pollution? We need it for life. Without it, we die.
I think we're getting a little bit off topic here. I was executive director of Nature Canada, a national environmental charity, for several years. So I've thought a lot about environmental issues. And I know that Andrea Horwath's plan is the best on the environment. The Liberals' Green Energy Act has been a disaster, privatising our green energy production. And Doug Ford, as you heard, has no plan on the environment to adjust to climate change. Climate change is real. We see that with our extreme weather. Doug Ford sticking his head in the sand is not going to protect our cities from floods, tornadoes, or extreme heat. The NDP has a great plan. We have a conservation-first approach to sustainability, which means protecting our natural spaces, and it means conserving energy so we don't emit so much carbon dioxide. We are going to incent that conservation with cap and trade, and we are going to make that cap and trade system fairer so that it earns public trust.
Climate change has been happening for 4.5 billion years.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. Eleanor, I agree with you on most things, most of the things that you said there. And mostly, I agree on the point that Doug Ford has no plan for climate change. In this debate, you're either a believer in climate change, that you know that it exists, or you're a denier. And Doug Ford and the Conservative Party are deniers. So this is the biggest challenge, not for us, but for our kids and our kids' kids. Okay. So this year, last year actually in China, they had their first red alert smog day. I think they had 2. That means don't go outside. Don't go outside. That's not the kind of place that we want to leave to our children to live in. And it's important that we address this. We are addressing it through cap and trade, which gives us the ability to put a price on carbon and invest in those things that make our businesses and our families more effective and more efficient so they have a smaller carbon footprint. And it's really critical that we address this.
But it's not effective. We need a larger fee, and we need to return that fee back to the taxpayer as a dividend. If we start off with $30 per cubic ton, and we return that to the taxpayer wins. The emitters then have the problem of reducing their emissions.
And then increase prices.
They may increase prices. Guess what? Most of them are exporters. So, and guess what? With our low Canadian dollar, they're doing just fine. Thank you. So it's not an issue.
I just want to
Cap and
say,
trade is simply a way for more capitalists to just make more money off pollution. We need to have strong penalties to make polluters pay.
Yeah, it's ineffective.
This is the simple answer here. They must pay, and if necessary, they should go to jail. So the other thing is that we need to have a publicly owned, democratically controlled energy production center where we collectively are investing money to produce green energy. So a publicly owned and democratically controlled industry for clean energy is essential.
I don't know why people are panicking so much about the weather. Did you know that we, in Canada here, we didn't even beat the records, the heat records yet of the 1930s when we had the Prairie Dust Bowl. That's in Canada. We still haven't beaten it. And I don't know what is it with...
Robert, the fact is, climate change is
It's not a full
real.
slice.
We have had so many records broken in the last 5 years.
This is what the records say. We haven't beaten the 1930.
We are hotter than the
Robert,
30s everywhere.
Anthropogenic climate change is real, and it will have catastrophic effects.
So how come we had the coldest winter and then the coldest April in history?
In Canada,
will
maybe.
introduce
one at a
and
time, please.
implement a climate change adaptation strategy. We all know in Ottawa, we're experiencing an increased number of floods. We need a strategy to deal with that.
And we never had floods before?
We've had floods
We had
before,
floods
but
for
we
5,000
are
6,000 years.
having an increasing number of extreme weather events. That is what climate change does.
but whatever you think, you can't be supporting the Liberals who've absolutely blown this file completely. Ontario lost $1.2 billion selling clean hydropower to the U.S. because of a bad deal. Every file they touch, they completely mess up. So if you do care about the environment, do not vote for the Liberals. There's no one at this table who has a more complete and lengthy record of protecting the environment over 30 years. I was on the Environmental Advisory Committee. I've got a science degree. I studied bioecology.
I would contest you on that. I actually ran a national
Fraser?
environmental charity.
Go ahead, John Fraser.
I had real
Excuse me?
impact.
Yeah, but for
It's
how long?
about-
Fraser.
It's
Go ahead,
about,
Yes, it's paid.
it's
Yeah,
about,
well,
it's
I've done it
about,
for free.
it's about whether there's a plan to address climate change. And Doug Ford and the Conservatives don't have a
No,
plan.
it's about
I'm
holding you to your
part of
record
a party
complete
that
failure.
ended coal generation, the first jurisdiction in North America to take burning dirty coal,
Right.
reducing rates of childhood asthma, the biggest single
Right.
carbon
And then-
footprint reduction in the world
And then you
in
bought a
one jurisdiction.
Vista, and you now own, we're proud owners under you of a coal
In
plant.
Canada, with all
The
the trees
Liberals,
we
the
are
Liberals
carbon
have
negative.
failed us on the environment,
Absolutely.
and the Conservatives have no plan. They will cut and they will make things worse. The NDP represents change for the better.
Okay, we'll
Green
stop
Party's
there.
better than
And
that.
Karen Howard, you get the final 30 seconds on this. Back to
All
you.
right, I would just like to substantiate my complete commitment to the environment. I have done this, as opposed to others at the table here, completely for free, completely out of passion, because I think it's the right thing to do. I was the one that went to Mooney's Bay, and you Liberals cut down 50 trees without consulting the community. I protected the Southern Corridor to the best of my ability, and I brought an omnibus bill on the environment. This is all, before you entered politics, John.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for Eleanor Fast, the NDP candidate. There's a new poll that shows the majority of Ontario residents would prefer cuts to deficits. Why would you run deficits and add to the province's already large debt?
So the NDP has a fully costed platform. We are being completely transparent with the people of Ontario that we believe in making things fairer. That means that we are going to be increasing taxes on the most wealthy people. Those who earn over $220,000 a year will see their earnings over $220,000 increase by 1%, and earnings over $300,000 will increase by 2%. We will also be restoring the corporate tax rate to 13%. We are doing that because we want to invest that money into making life fairer for everyone.
You mean spend that money? How do you think that's going to affect people who need jobs and businesses who are already paying through the nose for hydro, for gas, their business tax, their income tax, and all the other amazing things that you're going to tax them on? How is that going to sustain the province?
We will be using those funds to make sure that everybody has access to universal dental care, to universal pharmacare. We will be investing in our hospitals. We will be investing in our schools.
Spending.
But you know what? You don't need to run a deficit to do all that.
Can we look at the facts right now? We're paying $12 billion a year in interest payments alone on the provincial debt. And also what people don't realize is we're paying another $12 billion for Ontario's share of the federal debt. That's $24 billion that we lose every year that goes to nothing. And the more deficits you put, the more the debt increases because nobody's paying down the capital. And right now, recently, Moody lowered the economy status from stable to negative in Ontario. And if interest rates go up, imagine how much the interest payments are going to go. The more we pay interest, the less there is for services. It's time to finish working on a maxed out credit card, start paying down the debt so we don't pay the interest, so we can have the money for the services.
We're paying $26 billion for education and half of that for interest. Thank you very much, John, on your watch.
We can have all of the good things the NDP has talked about, and frankly, a lot of the things that the Liberals have talked about. We don't have to run a deficit to do it. You can put a tax on the highest income earners, increase it by 1%. You can add taxes, a corporate tax, bring it up to more an average of a Canadian average. You can increase tobacco taxes. You have housing speculation taxes. There are just a number of ways that you can go about raising money and get all those things without having to run a deficit. I'm assuming that the Liberal numbers on expenses and income are accurate. If we take the if we take the accountability office's numbers, then there'd be a small deficit under our plan for 2 years, after which there'd be a surplus.
So
Corporate tax cuts.
Okay, sorry,
are the reason.
John Fraser started first. Go ahead.
So here's, and I want to connect back up to what Eleanor was saying. She talked about her plan. It's about having a plan. We have a plan. It's very clear. It's in a budget. It's easy for people to find.
Where were you 15
It's easy
years?
It's easy for people to find.
All of
and
our
it's
members
important
are in
to
our
invest in those
platform.
things that families depend on. We're investing in universal childcare because not just because it's important or a nice thing to do, but because it's important for women, mostly women, to get back into the workforce so that we can have a more productive economy.
So you were
don't
on
ask,
vacation
don't
for the past
ask me.
15 years.
Ask the governor of Bank of Canada. That's what he says.
You were on vacation for the past 15 years.
So the other thing to remember that's really important is the Conservatives have no plan. They're saying, I can give you all these things and cut your taxes. It's Doug's magic money. And the thing I know about Doug Ford is a dismantler. He's never fought to build people up, to build better hospitals, better schools. He doesn't have a plan, and that's not good for the things that all of our families depend on.
Well, if Doug Ford is what you say he is, you know what you are? An enabler. An enabler of the debt and the deficit that we have built up over the last 15 years. You've had the option to fix it, and you know what? You have no intention. Even when you say you're going to balance the budget, you don't. And
You
you
lied
try
about it.
to, it's still a structural deficit. And you know how you got money to try to balance the budget by selling off assets, public assets.
You know who
and you know what?
I really like is
Now
I like,
you
I
don't
like,
even plan to
I like,
balance the
I like
books.
Bill Davis. I grew up under a Bill Davis government, and he's a builder.
We're holding
Okay,
you
under
to
Bill
account.
Davis, under Bill Davis, 16 years, not one balanced budget, because he was a builder, and he knew that it was important to invest in the things that people need.
Yeah, but your government,
Why do we have a
your
deficit
government
Doug Ford
is,
and the
okay, the one
Conservatives
thing
are
I'm
not
going to say
builders.
have a
is that
deficit
your
today?
government is deceitful.
Why do we have a deficit
Your
today?
government is deceitful
Liberals,
about
the
the
Tories.
debt
Okay,
and the
one at a time,
budget.
please. All right, go ahead, Larry.
Why
Watson.
do we have a deficit today? This is a really important question. And sadly, the Liberals, the Tories, and even the NDP have fallen over themselves to cut corporate taxes. Cut corporate taxes. Cut. They keep cutting corporate taxes. giving breaks to the corporations, and then they have to cut services
And if
because
you
they
don't-
can't afford it.
And if
They
you
say,
don't, people
let
will-
me, it's my turn to talk.
They will
Excuse
leave,
me.
They will leave to the states.
So,
One at a
so
time,
you
please.
need to make sure that the corporations are paying their fair share. All of these main political parties are cutting the taxes of the people who can afford it the most. And
No,
then they
that's
cut the
not true. The
services
NDP
on
is
the
not.
people that need them. So if you want to balance the budget, balance it on the backs of the rich and the corporations. Leave the working class alone.
So I have a question for Karen. Karen, what are you going to cut? Doug Ford has said he will make $6 billion in cuts. He
Do you know
said
what?
he will leave no stone unturned in
Do you know what he's
for
not used that word,
privatization.
actually? He's called it efficiencies.
Okay.
Do you know what
when I
Do you
hear
know?
efficiency,
Do you know what? Okay,
that
but
means
efficiencies
cut.
to be found,
do
guaranteed.
not
Green Energy Act, 20 billion is right
mischaracterize.
there.
Okay, you asked a question.
What's
I'm going
he
to give you the
going to cut?
answer. Have
Like
you heard
this,
of?
Green Energy Act, 20
Okay.
billion is right there.
Karen,
let's
what
give
are
Karen
you
Howard-
going to cut?
We've got 10
billion.
seconds left. Karen Howard, go ahead and answer the
Okay.
question.
We will go through line by line of the various expenditures we have. There are things like attrition and certain efficiencies that you can have inside a corporation that do not involve job cuts.
All right, we'll have to
Simple as
stop
that.
there. Eleanor Fast, you get the final 30 seconds.
Thank you. I think we've heard in this debate that the Liberals have mismanaged our economy and the Conservatives simply have no plan other than to cut your services, privatise public institutions and just make life more difficult for everyone. The NDP does have a plan. Yes, we will ask the most wealthy to pay a little bit more and the corporations, but we will be investing that money in universal pharmacare, universal dental care, healthcare, education, and the things that matter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the debates. We're going to move now to the closing statements. And once again, these will be in the reverse order that was drawn at random before we began our telecast. So we are going to start with Eleanor Fast, the NDP candidate. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks so much to all my fellow candidates for being here. I've really enjoyed this debate. I am so proud to be part of Andrea Horvath's team to bring change to the better to Ottawa South. We will ensure that everyone has dental care and pharmacare. We will end hallway medicine and provide more quality long-term care beds and better home care. We will ensure that students can get jobs and not graduate with crushing debt. We have a fully costed plan and we will be asking the very wealthiest to pay a little bit more in order to make life fairer for everyone. And in this election, a vote for the NDP is the strategic choice to keep Doug Ford out of Ottawa South. You don't have to choose between bad or worse in this election. Vote for change for the better. Vote for Eleanor Fast, NDP.
Thank you. Next is the Progressive Conservative Party candidate, Karen Howard. Go ahead.
Okay. We're at the crisis point right now in Ontario because of Kathleen Wynne and the Liberal government. And I think the worst thing of all is that there isn't public trust anymore in our institutions. I've been to thousands of doors in the last year to find out what people think, and I can't tell you how disheartening it is for people to close the doors and say, I don't believe any of you. And that's because we've had a Liberal government that is not trustworthy. In Ottawa South, we've pressed the snooze button. Is there ever any engagement on issue? No. Is there ever a discussion of anything accountable? The school closures are delayed. The MRI moving out of Riverside Hospital is all delayed. It all goes behind your back, no consultation. But the main point, vote for the Progressive Conservatives. It is a positive change because we're the only party actually promising to balance the budget. And that's the most crucial point
Okay.
in the state of Ontario right now.
Thank you. John Fraser, Liberal Party candidate.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you to my colleagues. This is an important election. It's about who will be there for you, who will fight to protect the progress we've made together and the services that our families rely on, like our world-class healthcare and our schools. Doug Ford and the PC Party have no plan, except to find $10 billion in cuts. We know what this means. We've seen it before. They will dismantle the services that our families depend on. I will continue to fight to protect our world-class public healthcare system and build on the gains we made in education and continue fighting for investments for our most vulnerable neighbours. I'm asking for your support on June 7th so that I can continue to fight for you and your family. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Robert Daigneault, the Libertarian Party candidate. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Well, first, I'd like to thank all the members here for a very healthy debate, and I hope people are paying attention. I would like to close by, excuse my three friends on the left, why am I paying income tax at all? Like, according to the NDP, the Liberals, and the Conservatives, everything is free. Free healthcare, free daycare, free everything. I'm sorry, nothing is free. So I want people to stop saying it's free. We're paying for it, and we're paying for it in interest payments. The Ontario Libertarian Party will balance the budget, and we will direct your money towards serving you, not serving the elites. So vote when you vote on the June 7th, make sure you consider the Ontario Libertarian Party as an option.
Okay, thank you. The Communist Party candidate is Larry Wassailing. You're next with your closing statement.
Thank you very much. What has capitalism done for you today? If you are a worker, you live paycheck to paycheck. Your job could be gone tomorrow. Profits are soaring while your paycheck is shrinking. If you're a woman, you earn 70% of what your male colleagues earn. A significant portion of your earnings go to pay for your child care and other essential services. If you are a student, you must pay for incredibly expensive education. You must graduate with a student loan, which will take you years to pay off. And you will work part-time with no benefits and live in the basement of your parents until you're 40. Meanwhile, your employer will live in luxury and vacation in Florida. Only the working class has the power to change this scenario. We do not have to accept the similar versions of exploitation provided by the Tories, Liberals, or the NDP. Demand a People's Alternative Program. Build Canada's Party of Socialism. Vote Communist on June 7th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Finally, the closing statement from the Green Party candidate, Les Schramm. Go ahead.
Thank you all for participating. I must say that I'm really pleased that this was a very civil debate. I had seen other debates that weren't nearly as civil, and I really respect you all for that. I want to say that I'm in this election to make the world a better place, to make Ontario a better place. And we're looking at all the good things that the Liberals and NDP are wanting to provide to the people of Ontario in terms of health care, pharmacare, dental care, better housing for the affordable housing. And we want all those things, but we want to do it in a fiscally responsible way. We are not looking to run up huge deficits. We want to, if possible, and we think it's possible, we will have a balanced budget. If there is a deficit, it will be extremely minor. So we want your vote. We want your vote for fiscal responsibility, but for social progress. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to all the candidates for participating in the debate today, and best of luck to you. Please join us on June the 7th for live local election results here on Rogers TV and also on 1310 News Radio. Our broadcast that night will begin at 9 o'clock when the polls close. Thanks for watching the local campaign.